Welcome to episode 68 of Accessible Finance. I'm Eric Johns.
I'm Rachel Johns.
Let's dive in.
All right. So, Eric, we have a couple who has written in. I'm 61. My wife is 66.
Okay.
I plan to retire sometime in 2025, and I'm flexible with the dates as my job isn't stressful.
You said he's retiring 65, so 4 years?
He's retiring sometime this year.
Oh, in 2025. Got it.
So at 61.
Got it.
But he's flexible with dates because his job's not stressful.
Okay.
We will be at the midpoint of the 24% Fed tax bracket this year
Okay.
with $290,000 ordinary income.
Got it.
We will have $370,000 of modified adjusted gross income.
What?
That's what he says. 370 of Maggie.
Okay.
I assume
But their AGI, he said, was in the middle. Are their taxable
ordinary income is $290K.
income? Okay.
And so the middle of the 24% Fed tax bracket with their ordinary income.
Okay. I'm interested to where the extra Maggie comes from, but go on.
Well, so it says because of the extra Maggie, right, this year, it will have him paying IRMA for his wife when he retires.
Mm-hmm.
His company will cover health care until he is 65.
Okay.
His company will still do it once he retires, right?
Got it.
We have rental properties, which provides enough income for us to live on.
Okay.
My wife doesn't work other than helping out with our rentals.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing $250,000 of home improvements that we have to pay for early next year.
Got it.
I can pay for it via Roth or traditional IRA, but not cash, as we used our cash paying for other home improvements.
Okay.
I lean towards paying via my Roth to avoid increasing my 2025 income.
Okay.
I will then do Roth conversions in 2026 through age 70. So we're talking for the next
Yeah.
8-9 years. At 70, I will start collecting Social Security.
So far, I like what I'm hearing.
Does my logic seem reasonable?
Yes.
I have no mortgages or loans.
Okay. It does. We need account balances.
Yeah.
I need to know total taxable. I need to know total tax deferred, and we would need to know total tax free, right? So,
Sure.
But on surface, yes, everything you're saying sounds pretty sensible to me. I kind of like the idea. Typically, we wouldn't want to take from the Roth, but if we're just playing the tax arbitrage straight by the numbers, we're good to go. My only concern or consideration would be what is the investment within the Roth? Like, honestly, we're pretty happy to sell at this point in time, in my mind. Not that we're market timers, but we're not going to be talking about fully. I assume we're not talking about assets that have taken a beating because most markets are at all-time or flirting with all-time highs. So even if you were with like crypto tickers, they're still riding high. So it's pretty likely that if you're selling now, it's a reasonable time to sell.
It's also interesting that, it's funny because you are just, as a typical rule of thumb, pretty anti pulling from Roth, right?
Absolutely.
But while
Hate
he's
it.
talking about pulling from the Roth right now for this, he has a plan to replenish and even further fill that Roth in the next 8-9 years, right?
So naturally, we would like to flesh out that plan.
Correct.
We'd like to, put some framework
Want some
around that.
numbers.
Yeah, and make sure that we are, on the same page there and that it's actually going to happen. And Rachel's absolutely correct. You typically want to withdraw from your Roth absolutely last.
Yeah.
But if we're just talking from a tax arbitrage play standpoint, it does very much sound like you're in an artificially or not artificially. I keep using that word.
You do.
When I mean anomalously high tax year, right? Like this is the highest it'll be. Sounds like for a while because your
Correct.
wife's not working. I don't know
He's
how much you're
retiring.
getting from your rentals. Maybe it's the difference between your modified adjusted gross and your ordinary income. Not actually certain there.
Yeah.
Don't want to make that assumption.
It sounded like that was indeed the case because in the later conversations, again, as people are replying to these questions, it's in a forum with people who are offering advice. As people are replying to this post, a lot of questions surrounded like why the steep increase between ordinary and your modified adjusted.
Yeah.
And a lot of it did come from said rental
Okay.
properties, which
So it's
is
about
why
100K
they were
then?
looking to continue feeding that.
Got it.
Wife's full-time job is really helping with said rentals.
Sure.
But not needing to, be paid like a W-2 or anything
Got
for
it.
that. So
Okay. So making about 100K from the rentals, that's going to cover living expenses. I think your plan is solid, and you're definitely thinking about it the right way. I mean, you're thinking about your marginal effective tax rates, and that's right where we want to be. And include IRMA in your thinking. It sounds like you already are. Include net investment income tax, which you're flirting with at 370. Well, you're actually in it at 370, so I think it's 250 is the cutoff for married filing jointly. So that's another consideration. But yeah, I like it. I like where your head's at. Well done, sir.
All right.
Congratulations. Sounds like you got a lot of dollars in retiring 61. Well played.
Yeah, exactly.
Well played.
And then being able to take Social Security, like delaying that till 70, means you have the cash flow to really be able to float your lifestyle for the next, 8-9 years, plus contribute to a Roth.
Yep.
That's a pretty solid position to be in for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Next up.
I was right about the phase in for net investment income tax, by the way. It's
So
250
proud of
for
you.
marrying filing jointly.
So proud of you.
I just need to be congratulated. I need this, guys.
You
All
know,
right.
I'll
Proceed.
be making cookies later today.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. So this is from Greg.
Okay. Hello, Greg.
Greg has been considering working with a fiduciary advisor.
Okay.
Greg has tried to do his due diligence. He has gone and spoken with 3 different people.
Great.
He has provided the same statements to all 3 people.
Good.
All 3 people entered his data for a typical Monte Carlo scenario.
Sure.
He has stated that he's provided the same estimated lifespan, COLA, expenses, Social Security.
Okay.
So in his mind, he's like, all of them had the same things. I'm comparing apples to apples.
Yep.
Right?
In his mind.
Yes. Caveat
Proceed.
number 1. Okay. He said one of them reported a 13% confidence in the success of his
Oh,
plan.
okay. So it's probability of success 13%. Got it.
13%. One of them suggested that everything was great without needing to touch any principal at all.
I'm not sure. Okay, go on. That's not usually how they work, by the way, but go on.
Correct.
It's total return, not principal versus interest, some kind of separation. Anyway,
Correct.
Sorry.
And then the third one suggested that there's a reasonable gap between what he needs and what he has.
Okay, so we've got 13%
Yeah.
yes and gap no.
Right. So he's confused.
Like, yeah, I was looking for apples to apples comparisons. I thought that I would get 13, 13, 13 or
Correct.
probability of success, at least a number.
Yes,
But I've
he
got
was hoping to be able to at least compare
I've got
similar.
quantitative and then qualitative and then qualitative.
Yes. And then the qualitatives don't agree.
Right.
So he said, okay, help me out. What on earth is causing the lack of consensus in these models, and what questions do I need to
Oh
be
man, you got to be careful
asking?
about the way to answer this one.
Yes.
Whew.
So first of all, I think let's assume all of the assumptions were the exact same for all 3. It could be the person who you were dealing with, right? There's definitely a human component.
Yes.
So
Yes.
competency in the professional matters.
Right.
Right. Now, let's say that we're going to give these 3 individuals he spoke to the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're all at least reasonably qualified to be able to participate in this analysis.
Right.
Okay. So then what on the information side could be causing that? I think that even though he said he's given them the same estimated lifespan, that doesn't mean that's the number they used. Right.
I mean, okay.
COLA, expenses, Social Security. But there are still other assumptions that need to be made, right, in order to come up with a Monte Carlo analysis.
Correct. Okay, so I'll give you some context around what the Monte Carlos are looking for.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to speak a little bit in at least neutral way about the industry and professionals that might hold themselves out to be fiduciaries.
Yes.
Okay, so the assumptions that are going to be within every model, right, or assumed in every model that would impact this are going to be rate of return for equities, and that's going to be broken down into large cap, mid cap, small cap domestic, and then large cap, mid cap, small cap international. So they could be using differing assumptions there.
Yep.
They very likely, even more so than that. So that's going to be for the equity portion and the bond portion as well as the cash even, right? So they're going to assume different rates of return there. What might they use? Well, we won't get into the super granularity.
I think that we can literally talk about the variables that are factored in here and how
Yeah.
that can change a plan dramatically.
Right. So the spending assumptions are going to
Yes.
be hugely impactful.
Income and expenses on both ends.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Income and expenses are going to be hugely impactful. The tax planning is going to be hugely impactful, whether or not they're going to exercise Roth conversions or not over retirement years. The things that are going to be your portfolio allocation as a whole. Are you going to be 60-40, 80-20,
Yep.
20-80, right? Like that's going to matter a ton. And then there's probably going to be some kind of a budget for, they're going to have retirement assumptions as well, right?
Yes.
So this is another huge dial that you can turn. If you just inflation adjust your expenses over time throughout retirement,
Inflation.
okay, it's going to show you a significantly lower probability of success than if you would opt into what's called like a guardrails strategy, like Guyton Klinger guardrails you might have been familiar with, or you can Google it and read up on it, which is basically saying, hey, look, when my portfolio goes up or down by some percentage, right, and then these are the nominal values in inflation adjusted terms. Say I have a $2 million target portfolio. I could say when it goes to 2.4 million, I'm going to spend a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend $1,000 more a month. But then when it goes to 1.6 million, I'm going to spend $1,000 less a month.
Right. So it assumes that your
so you're putting
behavior's
some kind
gonna
of framing
change
there.
based
and
on the values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Monte Carlos can look at that and tell you, hey, look, if you're willing to buy into this,
Yeah.
then we can say, yeah, you're not as likely to fail because you're going to make adjustments.
And you like to describe that to clients essentially as like, if you see that your car is about to hit the wall, you're turning the steering wheel.
Right. We're going to pump the brakes. We're going
Correct.
to turn the wheel. We're going to make some changes. And
But-
what does that look like?
Yeah.
It could be a change in risk capacity where we need to take a little bit more risk. That's unlikely to be the case. What was typically
Spending
the front running
less.
case is spending less,
Yeah.
right? We need to need to rein it back in.
Yeah.
Be a little bit more
Christmas
sensible
might
here.
look different this year.
Right.
And I think that to that end as well, like you said, that it's essentially kind of a pretty binary system there, right? Like either our behavior is going to change or our behavior isn't going to change, and
Right.
that can drastically take you down two different paths.
As a little caveat there, it's
Yeah.
also important to be honest with ourselves. There are
Will
varying
your behavior actually
exactly.
change?
There are varying degrees of yes, I can and will change my behavior,
Sure.
and I'm saying that I'm changing my behavior, and then nothing will actually happen when I
If you
overspend.
know yourself, be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest.
Because we need a plan for that, right?
And then you were talking about inflation, and I also think that whatever number the person data inputting is using
Yeah.
as the inflation
that
rate
matters.
is
Absolutely.
huge.
Absolutely
It's
matters.
huge. Also,
so
you're
return
talking-
expectations,
Yep.
inflation expectations,
Yep.
earnings expectations. You can inflate your salary at different rates. You can inflate
Yep.
medical and educational at different rates. You can
Correct.
change a number of dials. There are tons of dials, and you're basically paying for the expertise of the ability to turn the correct dials the correct amount.
that match your scenario. And well, the thing too is that you've got the treatment of excess income as well. Like in years where there's excess income, are you
yes,
adding
that's a
it
good
to
point.
savings
Yeah.
or are you spending it? Because that's a dial we've turned with clients as well.
Absolutely.
And then also if you're going through to retirement, like the distribution order of what accounts you're getting money from, like all of those things are.
Listen to you go.
Well, I've
When are you,
done
when,
it.
Are you a
with
CFP?
No, I'm not doing that.
You sure?
No. But I think that
Wow.
the
Killing
biggest
the game.
concern here, I think, Eric, is that this man
Uh-huh.
has not retained a single one of these three people.
I don't blame him.
No, but if you're not retaining these people, they're
Okay.
not taking in, like, I would be nervous that they're running a true Monte Carlo analysis on my accounts
Yeah.
in a free meeting beforehand, because how much conversation are they really having with me
Right.
about
That's a really
my
good point. That's a
asset
great point.
allocation, right? So
Actually, a good friend of mine used to do that.
I wouldn't use
Used to
any
do.
of those.
She used to front end a lot of the
Analysis,
planning,
yeah.
right? So that the kind of like the second prospect meeting or so could come back and say like, hey, look, this is your tentative plan. But like huge, props to her. She put a huge asterisk by
Yes.
tentative.
But
This is like
also-
a preliminary,
I also
analysis.
think that it's very important to point out that this individual that you are speaking about cares so profoundly that the amount
Yeah,
of
she's great.
the amount of work that she would put into that analysis was very, very
Significant.
real.
So
it's
much
the amount
so-
of work that she had to change it, right?
So much so that she changed that and dialed it
Yeah.
back.
and-
Because we were launching,
Exactly.
we were launching together in the past year.
Yeah.
And so like, when you launch,
You're
you're
learning
super
your
ambitious and
processes.
you
Yeah.
sometimes bite off a little bit
Eager.
more than you can chew.
And-
this turned out to be the case here because she was putting in so much time.
Yes.
It takes a ton of
Yes.
time to run a plan successfully.
Yes.
We're talking like 4+ hours.
Correct.
So like if you're putting in 4+ hours with every prospect that hasn't paid you $1,
Mm-hmm.
you might not realize that back over time, or you're going to have to charge very high
Well, and I
fees to
think
get it
it's
back.
the amount of FaceTime you have to have with a client to get this information and to have those
It's gonna take a while.
conversations is multiple hours. But then putting the analysis together to make the Monte Carlo is also a number of hours. And then presenting said Monte Carlo analysis and explaining it to the client is another number of hours. So we're not just talking for, I think it's significantly more.
It could
if you're
very
doing
well
it,
be. I'm saying
doing it
lower
accurately.
end. Yeah, low end is 4.
But so this is where when he's weighing in saying, look, I told them my COLA, my expenses, my Social Security, and my lifespan.
Correct.
He's thinking, I gave them these 4 like variables. Why are they different?
Yeah.
That's because there's 30 million other ones that they had to assume on. And if they don't know how the programs they're using work or what assumptions the program makes inherently, you know, the one who says you're good to go might say, okay, we're going to assume guardrails are in place, right? We're going to assume that excess income is going to be saved. We're going to assume all of these things, right? We're going to assume a certain type of distribution order in retirement. The one with 13% might have said, no, the behavior's not going to change. Simultaneously, it's also difficult before you've been retained. The motivation from the person you're meeting with is very different. They want you to believe that you need them. They're more likely to
That's a
paint
good point. That's a
dreary
really good
picture,
point.
right?
If I paint you a rosy picture, so you got 99%
You're good
chance
to
of
go,
success,
bye.
you're set.
So the second guy might have just had a really busy caseload and wasn't looking to take much to the client. And I know that's a cynical way to
Or maybe he's
approach it.
honest, to be honest. Like,
Exactly.
maybe he's the best bet out of the 3.
And that's what's hard. I think I would be very wary about
It's all about trust. You got to know who you're
who's-
dealing with.
Yeah, who's claiming that they know everything that's going to happen with your retirement picture before even engaging with you.
No, that's a really good point. And when we asked what questions you should be asking these individuals to try to clarify what the differences are, most of what we just pointed to, right?
Yeah.
Ask about the assumptions.
Yes.
Ask about guardrails versus inflation adjusted versus spending smile, and there's all these things there's all these ways to calibrate the spending and retirement. What it's going to do, how willing the client is to make adjustments.
I'd also ask them, if we were to work together, how often are we re-looking at this model and changing what's there? Because
the answer should be relatively frequently.
Yeah.
Quarterly, if not monthly.
Yeah, because the situations are going to change, right? I mean, like we said, these are all different variables, but as you have information to make the variable more accurate, you should be doing exactly that.
Right. There are also varying degrees of financial planning offered. So a lot of what's happened in the industry lately, or at least this is subjective, this is my view, but I'm in it, so you would hope that I'm at least marginally more well informed than
Pretty
others.
objective.
But I'm still a financial planner at the end of the day, so whatever, take it how you will. But what I would say is that a lot of individual RIAs, fee only fiduciary type RIAs, have been taking business from the bigger players in the field, the traditional, hey, we're stockbrokers, or hey, we're big banks. We have the smartest people in every room. Work with us, and your portfolio will grow, right? So that used to be the case. Like, you just go there, and they would say, like, we'll take your money and make it more money. But then people were more kind of interested in financial planning, which might include tax planning, which the large institutions cannot legally, because of liability reasons. And from their compliance department, they can't really offer you tax advice. Even the biggest players, even the people they pay CPAs to come in and meet with clients, they still can't give tax advice. They'll tell you that it's tax education, but stops just short of tax advice. So anyway, financial planners, some of them, like us, are willing to give tax advice. We're willing to dive into the whole scenario, and clients like that.
Yeah.
So clients were slowly being siphoned away by the more appealing service proposition, value proposition from the smaller RIAs when they're going to do this comprehensive financial planning. Yeah. So what happened? The large institutions now offer financial planning. And what that kind of means is it varies considerably, as you see here. Some might just plug it into a calculator. Some might give you your own calculator to plug it into, and this is your financial plan.
Right.
I would say to you that if you're hiring a financial planner to be able to put your data in their calculator and submit and produce an output that you can, allows you to sleep at night, you're probably doing it wrong, right? Like, you should be looking for a complete analysis of your situation and somebody that you can actually trust and work with, right? So that's kind of my take. Is we're not calculators. Our software, if you're just looking for a software to do the calculation, you could probably find that online, but you're not going to know what to do with the results. Like, what is 50% versus 90%? And what does that mean if you put inflation versus guardrails? Yeah. The answer is they're very, very different. Yeah. Like, they might produce a 30 to 40% variation in your probability of success based on just that box.
It's true.
Just that box. I've seen it. I do this regularly. We do this daily. So...
And I think that,
Does that make sense, though?
And so to that end, I think it's important to note that the smaller RIAs or like us, for example, we absolutely do use the software.
Yeah.
We use all of that.
Tax planning software,
Correct.
financial planning software.
We'll do it with you as involved as you want to be in said process. And then we will have very honest, very real, very open, very clear conversations to ensure that the assumptions and adjustments that are there are what match your current situation. We'll also run, if we believe that your behaviors will change based upon the value of your portfolio, this is what it looks like. If we believe that they won't, this is what it looks like. And then we can at least look at like the gray area in between. And so sometimes it's important to be able to run the what if scenarios, because you may think, oh, it doesn't matter as much, but you may be more willing to change your behavior if you understand how impactful changing your behavior can be. So there's a lot that is involved. And I would say that the most impactful part of the planning process is the conversations that take place, not that's what leads to reliable outputs.
Yeah.
But it's the conversations that have to happen, not I could put in whatever I want and run a beautiful report. It's going to look stunning and it's going to be useless.
Wholeheartedly agree. Well said.
All right. Well, okay. So a teaser for our next episode. We have somebody who is retiring this year who is crowdsourcing some feedback as to what people who have retired found to be most surprising in retirement.
Okay.
So we're going to discuss that.
That sounds pretty useful.
Yeah. And they did. And what I loved is that they said, look, the form is mostly financial, but they said financial or non-financial. I kind of want to know everything. They're retiring at 53, so they're retiring on a very young,
early,
on the younger side, but want to kind of be prepared because they feel like they're going in kind of not eyes wide open just yet. So
what should I be?
Yeah.
What should I be scared of? What's the iceberg?
Good, bad, and otherwise.
Yeah. What's lurking beneath the surface here?
Correct. So we're going to come back to that next week.
All right.
Till next time.
Thanks, guys.